Hello and welcome to the week ahead from the Financial Times in London. Here's what we're watching this week. Syria's on the agenda as Putin meets with Erdogan in Turkey, the release of minutes from September's rather divided US Federal Reserve rate-setting meeting, and Sony's plan to bring virtual reality to the masses with the release of its PlayStation headset. First to Russian President Vladimir Putin, who will travel to Turkey on Monday for the World Energy Congress in Istanbul. It's Mr. Putin's first visit to the country since Turkish warplanes shot down a Russian military jet last year, killing one pilot. Both countries will discuss Turkish Stream, a proposed pipeline that would bring Russian gas to Turkey and possibly to the EU market via Greece. The visit will also give Mr. Putin the opportunity to speak to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Syria will be high on the agenda, as FT's Moscow bureau chief Catherine Hiller explains.
The real big issue on the two men's agenda will be Syria. When they settled their fierce row, rather unexpectedly, 3 months ago, they said that the Syrian civil war would be one area where they would seek common ground. Now, of course, as Russia's relations with the US have hit a new low and the attempts at cooperation of the two in Syria have collapsed, Mr. Erdogan kind of finds himself in a sweet spot. The Turkish president might ask Russia to drop its support to Kurdish groups in Syria. That is not in Russia's long-term interest, but Moscow might make some compromise moves for now.
Relations between Ankara and Moscow have been tumultuous over the past year. Immediately after the downing of the Russian fighter jet last November, Moscow imposed economic sanctions on Turkey. But in June, Mr. Erdogan apologised to Mr. Putin for the incident, and the two men have since met in St. Petersburg and in China. Next to the US, where the Federal Reserve will release minutes from its September meeting on Wednesday. This will provide clues on perceived risks to the US economic recovery and when the central bank may raise interest rates. At its September meeting, the committee held rates, despite opposition by 3 out of the 10 rate setters. This type of dissent has been rare under Janet Yellen's leadership, so market watchers will be hoping to glean more information when they scrutinise the minutes. There's much anticipation of a rate rise in December. Here's our US economics editor Sam Fleming with more.
The signalling from Janet Yellen during the press conference following the latest meeting in September was that a move was likely by the end of the year. She didn't say it quite that explicitly, but that was certainly what the markets took to be the message. There are 2 meetings coming up before the end of 2016. One is November, and that is only a few days before the general election, the presidential election, so most people do not expect the Fed to move at quite such a febrile moment. The second one is in December, and that's really what people will be having in mind, I think, when they read these minutes to the September meeting in the coming days.
The Federal Reserve last raised rates in December 2015 by 0.25 percentage points, its first rise in a decade. In recent months, speculation of another rise have been fueled by indicators such as strong jobs reports and positive service data. And finally, to tech world's latest obsession, virtual reality. No longer confined to science fiction, advances in miniaturized computing power and 3D graphics means that it's now possible to immerse yourself in a digitally created environment, whether it's flying through the sky or swimming to the bottom of the sea. As more tech companies invest in virtual reality, the race is on to create a product for the mass market. On Thursday, Sony PlayStation's virtual reality headset goes on sale, and FT's San Francisco correspondent Tim Bradshaw reckons it might just have an edge over its competitors.
Sony's advantages over the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive are in price, distribution and audience. The headset plugs into a PlayStation 4, which means there are more than 40 million potential customers out there already, and many of them are the kinds of game enthusiasts that will be most excited about VR today. PlayStation VR is also at least $200 cheaper than the Rift and Vive, although at $400 and up it's not a cheap Christmas present. The PlayStation also has a well-established community of games developers and publishers, which means there's a large library of content available for its VR headset at launch, and it's really content that will drive sales of these devices. Sony seems pretty confident that it can have both the demand for the device and the supply to meet it.
And that's what the week ahead looks like from the Financial Times in London. Goodbye.